Thank you, everyone, for joining another episode of PS Younger Self. I'm your host, Chris, and I am really thrilled to bring back two very special people. They are Phyllis and Glenn Hill, who are relationship experts and the founders of the Core Emotion Wheel and Connection Codes. And we are diving into a conversation today that I believe it's really relevant and also important for a lot of people because it's talking about relationships. And Glenn and Phyllis, there's a growing conversation right now about how we're becoming a sexless society. And it seems to be a topic that isn't just relevant in America, but around the world, across different age groups. And this reporting of less sexual activity also stems from different factors. It seems like there are confluence of factors, whether it's stress to or addiction to digital consumption, including porn. But more importantly, I feel like, and very relevant here in our conversation and to your expertise, emotional disconnection. So I want to start there. Based on your experience and your research, why do you feel emotional disconnection is such a key factor in why couples grow apart?
Well, you boil it down to just the basic human condition. If I was in a store just going shopping, which I actually did the other day, and I bought this shirt. But if I was in a store and some stranger walked up to me and gave me a big hug, it would feel very odd because I don't have any relationship underlying this physical interaction, this physical engagement. So it would feel odd. If Phyllis was in the store and walked up to me and hugged me, that would feel completely good and right and correct. Or if Tira, somebody that I'm close with, they could even surprise me. If I came around the end of an aisle and they just, jumped out and hugged me, that would make sense. Well, that's because we have emotional connection. So it's not considered an assault. If a stranger did it, I'd be like, oh my gosh, who is this person? And what are they doing to me? Well, sex is a multiplier, so you just multiply that. And to be involved sexually with someone that you don't feel emotionally safe with, you don't feel emotionally connected with, is very, very difficult in and of itself. Then you add on the hurt. So people in ongoing relationships typically are experiencing so much hurt with each other, so much pain. We now know from brain scanning the brain doesn't distinguish physical pain from emotional pain. So it's just like I had stabbed Phyllis in the arm with an ice pick, and then 10 minutes, an hour, 2 hours later, I'm like, hey, babe, you want to do some of that wild, crazy sex stuff? And she's like, I have an ice pick in my shoulder. I'm like, yeah, but that was like an hour and a half ago, babe. Don't worry about it. Let's do some sexual stuff. And she's not going to be able to do that. She may force herself to, but it's not going to be a bonding experience. It's actually going to be a violating experience.
I think about just the lifestyle that we live these days and how so often we are so dysregulated and we go 90 miles an hour all day long. And then to connect, even without the right tools to connect emotionally, it's almost like it feels too exhausting. Like, let's just veg out and get on our devices. Even if we watch a show together, it's still just don't want to put the effort into connecting emotionally. And so then to go the next level and then try to connect sexually when we've not even slowed down enough to connect emotionally, too often it's just too big of a leap. It's too far in the distance. And, that's such a huge thing. I know that plays out for us where it's just, you got to slow me down. Like, and I think that, often, and we hear this in the work that we do, that people on vacation are like, oh, that's when we actually connect sexually. And you go, okay, what's the component on vacation versus everyday life? Well, often it's because we've spent a lot of time just having fun all day long. We've relaxed. We have taken, we've unplugged from our devices or our telephone or work. And then, it's like that sexual connection just kind of flows into the relationship. Where everyday life, it just seems like we don't know how to get there. And that's the struggle of just, wow, what are we doing that we can't get there anymore? Which is the whole thing where we hear that so often, the sexless marriages, sexless relationships, just people that are not sexually active, because it's just like, it just seems like too much effort, too much trouble, don't have the energy, to get there, because we don't know how to get there emotionally without a lot of time, which is part of what I love about the work that we do and the tools that we teach with the connection codes, is to be able to understand really quickly how to get there. We've developed a 2-minute tool called the core emotion wheel, because let's just get there. Let's get to what's really happening for us quickly, because man, don't have a lot of time left at the end of the day, especially if you have other responsibility like children or whatever it may be, where you're just like, I just don't have much left. Don't want to have an hour-long conversation or a 2-hour conversation to get there emotionally, and then to still have any energy left for sex just seems impossible.
Mm-hmm. What you guys both shared, I have a lot of tabs open right now that I want to double tap into, because it's so relevant. You can dive deeper, but if I can start from one place first, is with Glenn, what you said, emotional safety. And then I want to dive, and then I want to go from there to Phyllis, what you said. There's this big gap from where we are, because we all live in this really busy, overstimulated, stressed out place. And then it feels like a big leap to get to that connection. So first, emotional safety. I think that's really critical. And it sounds, and to me personally, I will speak for myself, it's definitely something that has become more top of mind to me. And I've been able to define what emotional safety looks like to me. But I'm curious, from your perspective, what does emotional safety look like? Do different people have different definitions of it? Because I feel like that's a really essential piece to even connect deeper on an emotional level, than to get to that sexual connection. I mean, these foundational pieces need to be in place first.
Yeah. We're designed to be emotionally safe. We're born that way. We're faith-based. We think there's some sort of God designer in it. It doesn't matter to us if somebody believes that or not, because whether there's a God or not, we're still born this way, seeking emotional safety. I don't remember if last time we talked about the still face experiments. Dr. Ed Tronick in the 70s did a series of experiments which have been replicated countless times, where if we don't feel safe with another human, we get activated in a detrimental way very quickly. We get overwhelmed that this person's not safe for me. So for me to be able to present my authentic, vulnerable self to anybody, but to Phyllis, if I'm not able to do that, if I don't feel secure that I'm going to share about me, and I deal with a number of psychological disorders personally, and Phyllis knows that about me. Well, I hid that from her we don't have it on the calendar, but it was probably way over 20 years that I was constantly hiding from her what was happening for me, because I knew, quote unquote, that if she saw the real me, she wouldn't like me. If she saw the real me, she would move away from me, whether geographically, relationally, permanently, temporarily, whatever. So I expended so much energy trying to hide who I really was. Now, she's mostly entertained by my oddness. She gets it. I'm a bit quirky. And she kind of likes it. It's weird. And I actually said to her this morning, we were having breakfast, and I said, it must be quite a challenge living with someone like me. And she just grinned and she goes, yeah, but I like it. So I know now that I can just be me. I'm just going to share all of me. And she has the right not to like it. She has the right to convey the pain of a situation with me. But I'm able to do that. And so I feel safe to do that. And that sets up everything else. If I don't have that safety, and I'm talking about 100%. And again, that's very challenging. We're born with it. We're actually designed this way, but we lose it along the way, unfortunately. And I grew up in a family of origin that was very, very unsafe. I didn't have any relationships, safe relationships at all. So it took me a long time to get back to my original coding, my original state where I did experience safety. And I have that now, but not just with Phyllis, with other people as well, but certainly, especially with Phyllis.
On a practical side, when I think of that safety, I think of a place where there's not judgment. So,
Yeah.
for Glenn, once he realized that I was safe, it came with no judgment. And that is, I think somewhere along the lines when he was young, he began receiving judgment. Like he wasn't good enough. He was, cried too much, or he was whatever it was. And so he started hearing judgments. And that's when he started hiding his true self as a young boy. And so in our relationship, he just assumed he wasn't safe.
Yeah.
And then when he realized I can't live this way anymore, and he started trusting and coming kind of out of the shell and testing the waters, and he realized, okay, she doesn't judge me. I'm acceptable as I am. So the lack of judgment is part of what brings safety. And I think also with relationships, when you also don't immediately get the solution thrown at you, as in, you share your authentic self and someone immediately starts giving you advice and giving you, the answers so that you can live life better, which just also shuts you down. Like that, you don't feel seen and heard just for who you are. You feel like someone's always saying, well, here's a better way to do it. Here's a better way to become a better person. And so it's the lack of judgment, and then it's the lack of advice to change who you are. And so there's got to be this safe place where you can show up and just be your authentic self and be loved in that place, and be accepted. That makes that safety, like, okay, in this relationship, whether it's friendship or partnership, whatever, that you're like, I am safe here. Like I can reveal who I am. And that's what builds that relational safety.
No, that resonates with me so much, especially when you spoke about it creates a space of no judgment and wanting to give unsolicited advice to just fix something, because then that would activate the fear, right? Like Glenn, like if somebody comes from a place of fear of judgment, fear of shame, fear of something, like whatever judgment would just activate that. I mean, I've experienced that, and so when I know I'm in a place and a space with someone where there's that lack of judgment, like it's like this deep exhale. Like I'm not on edge where like I have to worry like if what I'm going to say next, how it's going to be perceived. And so that really, really resonated with me. If someone, because I feel like a lot of this we're talking about, we can describe it here, and obviously, Glenn and Phyllis, you guys are experts. You have studied this and research, and you help thousands of people around the world, so you can articulate that. What if the couple, they aren't able to express that, like, I'm not quite feeling like safe, but they don't know what it is. You've helped us describe what is that missing piece. How can the other person, let's say, like, start to kind of illustrate that, or how can they start a conversation about, like, I don't feel safe in this place where I want to share my feelings? Does that come with like defining emotional literacy? Like, where can one start to cultivate that emotional safety?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what the connection codes are all about. And the connection codes are not a personality profile or a theory. They're just a fundamental human condition. This is, again, how we are born. We function this way automatically. So the first tool we teach in our Foundations Masterclass is what we call the OO. This is what we do with babies. We walk into the room, and I would encourage people to, I've done this experiment with all 12 of my grandchildren. Walk into a room with a 12-month-old and look at them eye to eye, but be totally silent. Don't make any sound. And that baby will not connect with you. So we call it audible listening, which is kind of an oxymoron, but it's what we call the ooh. Learn to ooh people. So whatever, when Chris comes to me and says, whew, I feel so much pain about today. It was a tough day, just a lot of sadness, heavy, heavy, heavy. I can tell her, oh, Chris, you're doing great. I can slap her on the back, say, you don't need to be worried about situations, whatever. I just made it worse for her. I just distanced myself from her because the message I'm sending to her, not on purpose, not from a bad intention, but the message I'm sending her is, Chris, number one, you're wrong to experience what you're experiencing. And number two, you're stupid. So stop feeling that, Chris. Stop it right this minute. So, I think we have balloons going up in front of us. Do you see that? That's so bizarre.
That was very sweet. Yeah, sorry.
I don't know what's happening. But anyway, if I can ooh you, so you share with me what's happening for you, and the ooh is a label. There's lots of versions of the ooh. But if I'm audible with you, or I'm able to go, oh wow, okay, I hear you. That's that's a lot. That changes the whole dynamic, and it's a very, very simple tool, but it slows down this interaction. It slows down the conversation. It's what we call the cycle. If the cycle speeds up, it turns into a cyclone. And so we encourage people, for number one is just to learn to ooh, just to learn to be present. That's what provides the safety. And again, if you do this with a 12-month-old, that 12-month-old hears you and begins to feel safe with you. This is the human condition. We don't learn this in high school. We're born with this. It's coding. It's hardwired inside of us. So learn how to ooh. That's the number one thing. Phyllis and I would say, I don't know if we've ever even talked about this, but I think that's probably the first thing that set our relationship up for success, because we missed with each other for decades, horribly. I mean, we lived disconnected all the time. And learning to ooh to this day, to this morning, whenever I'm able to convey something and Phyllis is able to just go, oh, wow. Okay, she may not get it. That may not make a bit of sense to her. She doesn't have to understand me. That's a big mistake we make in marriage therapy. We say, oh, people need to understand each other. No, they don't. She's never going to understand me. And there are things about her I'm never going to understand. I'm not trying to. I just want to be present and be safe with her. So we start with the ooh, and that's what sets us up as far as doing the core emotion wheel and being able to convey authentically at the core what's happening for us.
What that conveys is a non-judgment, which is kind of what we were saying a few minutes ago. It's like when I just make space for whatever he's saying by being audible, by saying things like, oh, wow, yeah, I hear you. That is that audible ooh that we call the ooh, where I'm not judging what he's saying. I'm not trying to fix what he's saying. I'm not trying to tell him he's right or wrong. I'm not. It's just like, okay, I hear you. And that non-judgment, it almost requires an audible response, because if not, if I'm silent, then where his brain goes is, she doesn't agree with me. She thinks I'm wrong. She thinks I'm stupid. I've not said a thing, but that is so quickly where the mind goes, is because my silence says a lot. My silence communicates a ton of judgment on whatever he just shared. And and it can be at times, like Glenn says, in a laughing way, but there's a lot of things he talks about that he has thought through really well. And who knows what the topic is? Like, it may be political, it may be a topic he's super interested in or he read about, and I really don't care. And I really don't have an opinion about it. But I also am glad he's telling me, as in our partnership, I want to hear what interests him, but it's important that I give an audible, like, I'm hearing you, but that doesn't mean I'm agreeing with you or disagreeing with you. I don't have to. I don't have to put a judgment on it. I don't even have to put the energy into it to actually come up with I agree or don't agree. And that's so freeing for me, because we are so different, and it's like, wow, it's okay. He just wants to be heard and know that he's safe with me, and I'm not going to judge it. And so it's that audible response that has made such a difference, where he feels like an invitation. It's like an invitation to keep talking, where the silence just very awkwardly shuts things down. And you can try this think about the people in your life. I mean, whether it's your boss or a coworker or friends or family members, where when you get silence back, you find yourself just shutting down your words. Like you eventually go, I'm going to stop talking right now because they are not engaging in any form. And
Yeah.
so that just shuts down the connection right there. And so that's why, because sometimes when we teach this, people go, well, that seems really forced, or I'm just real uncomfortable with having to respond. And it's like, well, then you can learn that though. You can learn this, because if you stay in that silence, it is hurting your connection with other people, because other people then experience judgment in your silence.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that you said that you can't learn it, because because I feel like this is really just tapping into an overarching, and please tell me if you agree or disagree, but just the relational skill that I feel that from a macro level that a lot of us are struggling, whether you're in a romantic relationship or even a platonic friendship, dynamic or professional. I mean, just to relate, because even in, let's say, a platonic relationship with a friend, if you don't feel emotionally safe to be authentic, to share your feelings, for them to receive it also in a non-judgmental way, then one person will shut down and not feel emotionally safe to connect. And then it will prevent, that relationship from going further and developing that like intimacy. So, and if you don't work on it like a skill, it's something that is possible, or you just prevent yourself from advancing that way. So I love that how you said it's something you can learn. It's a skill. And I remember Glenn and Phyllis from our previous conversation, this dishwasher story that you shared. And the reason why I bring it up here again, because you spoke about it as a really pivotal moment, shift in your dynamic that allowed you to finally shift into connecting deeper. Because Phyllis, I think it was you that said you got curious about Glenn's experience of what he was interpreting from I think the thank you for unloading the dishwasher, correct? But I want to zone in on that curiosity. Do you think that curiosity, to be able to have it, is also a way to build emotional safety?
Oh my goodness, yes. That's so huge. So if your listeners don't know the story or hadn't heard the previous podcast that we did with you, for years, I would say things like, thank you for unloading the dishwasher. If I came into the kitchen and realized it had been done, and Glenn would respond in a way like he was offended that I said those words, and it didn't make any sense to me. And it always kind of created an argument of some kind. And I remember going through a season where I would say, normal people just say you're welcome when someone thanks them. And I was like, I remember saying that so many times, and, that didn't go well either. We would argue about that. And then, and I mean, sadly, this is like 20 years into our marriage. And, after a while, I just would not say anything. I would say, thank you for unloading the dishwasher. And then he would respond snarky something. And then I would just turn away. But then that silence would also create a distance for hours, maybe a day. And so then one day the curiosity, it finally like surfaced for me, and I turned towards him. So the same words were exchanged, where I said, thank you for unloading the dishwasher. And then he responded something snarky like, well, that's not the only thing I've done today. And then I turned towards him and said, babe, what do you hear me say when I say, thank you for unloading the dishwasher? And, by slowing down, by getting curious, and by being audible in the sense of that invitation, like, I want to know what happens for you, which at first he didn't trust. His first response was a snarky one, but I stayed with it, and I simply said, yeah, I hear that. but I'm just curious, what happens for you? And,
Mm.
when he opened that door and allowed me to see what goes on in his head, what the message is that he hears, it just changed everything for me. Like, I felt so much compassion, like, oh, this now does make sense. Like, I get it. Why we're ending up here. Like, what happens for him that shuts him down when I thank him for something like the dishwasher. And I think that curiosity in that moment, we've been married, it'll be 43 years coming up this summer. And it's like, what a difference it has made in our relationship, my curiosity, and vice versa, where we don't understand still each other at times and the things that are wounding. Like he felt so much pain when I would thank him because the message was, she's only thanking me because obviously I should be getting more done. Or it's such a big deal that I got anything done. Or like his message, what the filter it went through for him was not a genuine appreciation. It was a criticism. My thank you. And so once I understood that, it was like, it helped me to go to the what do you need, which is all that we're trying to get to, is to understand what do we need, because our needs are so different. And I think often in relationship, we think we know what the other person needs, or we guess at what the other person needs, or we put our own needs into what they should need, kind of thing. Like what I need, I'm going to put on you, so maybe I'll get what I need fulfilled. It gets really complicated. But when you simply get to that point where you can go, what do you need? And then to hear and accept what is being said, it's so huge, and it's just that's where the curiosity came in, where I realized I will never figure this guy out, and I need to just ask the right questions to get to what's really happening for him.
Yeah. And I want to emphasize here for your listeners, because it's so important, Phyllis was never wrong to say thanks for unloading the dishwasher. This is not a Phyllis issue. This has nothing to do with Phyllis, even though it looks like it's all about Phyllis. This is about what was happening inside of Glenn. She was not wrong ever to say thanks for unloading the dishwasher. Also, she was actually correct whenever she would say something like, most people would just say you're welcome. Well, you can be totally right, totally correct, and absolutely wrong at the same time. She was totally correct information-wise, but she was absolutely wrong relationship-wise because she had no idea what was happening for her partner. Again, that's not her fault. That's not her responsibility. I never said it to her. For 20 plus years, I'm a quick study. It only took me about a quarter of a century to figure this out. So but she, and I'm the educated one, she's the smart one. She's the one that figures out what actually matters in life. And literally all of the benchmarks in our relationship are because of her. I'm supposed to be so dang smart, but I never figure anything out. She's the one that actually figures out what matters. And in that moment, she slowed this couple down and she helped me find myself, which again was my responsibility. She only did it out of kindness and gratuity. And when she helped me find myself, I was able to say to her, to convey to her the pain, that felt painful to me when she would say, thanks for unloading the dishwasher, not because she's wrong, but because of what's happening for me. And, trace it back to my childhood. I mean, who knows? You can analyze that forever and still not really figure it out. But I felt wounded in it because I thought her point was, well, it's a miracle you did something useful because you usually do nothing worthwhile because she's perpetual motion. She's, this phenomenal, just turbo engine that's always accomplishing so much. She gets more done in an hour than I do in a day or 2 days sometimes. So that's the way it translated to me. Again, not because of her. This is zero Phyllis. This was 100% of what was happening for Glenn. And I just want to emphasize that because I don't want people to hear saying that, oh, well, Phyllis was wrong and bad because she said that thing. No, not at all. She's never been wrong in saying that. And she can still say it to this day. We actually dance really well together. And so she typically now will say something like, babe, I feel so much joy that you partnered with me in this. And that just washes over me. She does not have to say that. She says it because I matter to her, and it's worth it to her because we spend a lot of time together.
Yeah. No, thank you for clarifying that. You're right. Phyllis was a wrong. There is no right or wrong, right? Each person's lived experience or that live experience in that present moment in relation to each other is valid because it's very individualistic. But the beauty, what it sounds like by leading with curiosity is that it's removing the judgment. It's inviting. That was a beautiful word, Phyllis. I love that you use that too. You're inviting Glenn to just share with me. Share with me everything that you're feeling, everything that you're interpreting so that I can better. I think you said that we can't really understand each other, but I think at least the attempt, right? At least to so I can better understand who this person is so that we can relate to each other. And I love also what you said about asking the right questions. I think that's really, really key because asking the right question can help navigate the conversation, what's happening there. Because this also reminds me of something that you said in our past relationship, in our past episode, about how when you ask with like why questions, it actually makes the receiver feels like they're being accused. And I have to admit this to you guys. I wish your voices were in my head in this live experience I had with someone very, very, very dear to me who was very, very vulnerable. And I was trying to lead with curiosity, like, why are you crying? But it came across like with the why, as opposed to I believe you teach is like what's happening for you. Is that the? I think that's
and this is
what you say,
just
right?
what.
Like,
Right. This is just what the research showed. We didn't randomly pick these out of a hat and say, and the winner is what happens. So we just watched interactions for years, literally years, thousands of interactions. And what we started observing with numerous phrases, but what we started observing that when someone asks why, they virtually never connect. There's lots of neutral. We did 3 columns: disconnect, neutral, and connect. And they virtually never connect. They don't always disconnect, but there's a lot of neutrals. But they rarely pull them together when somebody says, why do you feel like that? Why do you act that way? Why do you believe that? Why do you think that? Because it sounds like an accusation. And when we did exit interviews, we just asked people, what happened for you whenever she asked you why? And he said, well, it sounded like she was making fun of me, that she thinks I'm stupid, that I would, experience that. So we just, after a while, we're like, whoa, the why is a big loser. Just exit off. Let's just don't. We ask why in chemistry and, science and math. But with human interactions, it seems to virtually never be a connector.
Well, it is interesting, like the good intention that you were just sharing, Chris, with a friend. You wanted to show curiosity. You wanted to pull more out. But when someone is crying, that's usually a pretty vulnerable state.
Yeah.
And to be asked, why are you crying? There's the brain hears judgment and accusation, like they're doing something wrong or shameful. And so it often shuts them down, just even if they don't want to be shut down. Like the body reacts in a turn this off, shut this down. This is not acceptable. This is not okay, which wasn't at all your intention, but it's like how the body responds. And, versus the question, oh, friend, what's happening? It's that invitation. It's like the door opens wider. And often it's amazing to watch. The tears often get heavier, like it's that release, it's the deep breath, it's the I'm allowed to cry here. This is a safe space where I can really let it out. And even in the question, often you're slowing down time, you're slowing down the situation, and you're saying, I have all the time in the world to hear what is happening with you right now in these tears. And so the body feels that and then just flows into that and releases what all is stuck. And even in those sacred moments, like after the question is asked, to give the silence that's needed so that the tears can flow and until the other person can actually get words out. And because sometimes we don't even know what is happening with us. We don't know where those came from, but obviously our body knows. So if we slow down, we can get there. We can go, okay, what is happening? And then the words begin to come as we allow ourselves to let them out. And then, sometimes we hear this from people often, like, wow, I didn't even know that was really in there. I didn't realize how hurt I was. We had this experience in a session the other day where she said, I did not realize how much hurt I feel towards your family. And and then the tears got more and more words came, and he was sitting there listening to her and doing a great job oohing her, like opening the door, allowing this to happen. And he did even though it was about his family of origin, his parents, his siblings, it was like he made space for her. But she was like, I didn't know where that came from. But it was such a powerful thing because this is pretty huge. But it had been kind of tucked away inside her body, and she had not felt safe to share it until that moment. But it was really beautiful to witness, and it came with the tears that often, come with that kind of realization. So.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. And it made what you said there, I think, really kind of put words to the experience I was having with this person, because when I asked, yes, with good intention, why, they responded with, I don't know. So I feel like that was a direct response to, like, I don't know what's going on, and the shutdown that you speak about. The curiosity mindset, I want to dive deeper into. I think that mindset also seems like it makes it possible to attune to our partner or the other person. Can you share, like, what that looks like, and is that part of your core emotion wheel work? Because I remember in our past episode, you did a brilliant live example of how to use that. And to me, it reminded me, the more I also try to study and exercise and practice developing emotional intelligence and these relational skills, is that we're trying to emotionally tune in to the other person, versus if we don't have these skills, we often, besides maybe shutting down, can be very defensive. No, in this relationship.
Yeah, and so you're just asking about being present for yourself and for others. That's our number one order of business, is for the individual to find themselves authentically, for them to know what's happening, because most of us don't. And to this day, I mean, Phyllis and I are in our 60s, and we're just discovering ourselves as far as what's really happening. So if I don't know what's happening for me, there's no way that I can convey it to you. So the core emotion wheel helps us. Number one helps us find ourselves. And then it sets up the pattern, the process. The core emotion wheel is a staged enactment. It's actually just an exercise of the emotional muscle, so that on a Tuesday afternoon, whenever I feel wounded, whenever I feel hurt with Phyllis, again, not blaming Phyllis. I'm not saying it's her fault that I felt hurt. Was she involved? Well, yeah, she was there, but I'm not. Did she contribute to it? Maybe, maybe not. Could have been 0%. Just like with the, thanks for unloading the dishwasher. Well, that was 0% Phyllis's fault. It's not that she did anything wrong. Although I would also suggest Glenn didn't do anything wrong. I felt hurt. I wasn't trying to feel hurt. I just felt hurt. And again, over 20 years, I didn't have the words, the tools, the capability to say to her. I felt wounded by that. Now I'm able to say it in the moment, again, on a Tuesday afternoon when it happens. And that changes the whole setup, because I'm actually able to convey authentically at the core what's happening for me.
It is amazing, kind of going over some of the things we've already said, like when you take judgment out, and with your friend who was crying, and then your question of why, and she goes, I don't know, to realize we do that even all the time to ourselves. We shut down and we go to, I don't know, it's often an answer. And for me, even for myself, I would say there's times when Glenn asks it correctly, like he'll say, what's happening, and I go, I don't know. But then I get curious about myself. Like, I don't want to live in a I don't know stage and state, right? I want to know. But I know I have to slow down. So sometimes I'll go, I think I'll take a walk, or I'll just get outside, sit outside. That often will give me the space to slow down with myself and go, okay, what's happening for me? And then, we've referenced the core emotion wheel, which has the 8 emotions on it. And, if I just slow down and I look at all of those 8 words and I just go through every one of them, and because sometimes people will go, well, can you skip around? I don't know. I don't think I feel any hurt today. We'll go, don't ever skip, because you need to find that hurt, that last time or a big time you felt hurt. Because often we are not in tune with even a current hurt, right? Because we're just so out of touch with our emotions. There's often one or two people go to real quickly, like, oh yes, I know, my joy today is the sun is shining. Like, they can go real quick to certain ones, but others they really have a hard time with. But those are often, believe it or not, the ones that are most prevalent. They're just the most hidden. And so it's real important to find that space. And so sometimes, again, you have to go, oh, I need to go into a state of meditation, or I need to go sit on my yoga mat and I need to do some stretching. And then I'll be able to slow myself down, my nervous system down enough that I can go, okay, what is happening with me? And then to give that time and space to yourself, to have that conversation with yourself, so that you can share it with your partner or with your friends who are safe for you. And, there are times that we do get stuck, but to realize if you've got these really basic tools and they don't take a ton of time, like we always say that with the core emotion wheel, it's a 2-minute exercise just to go through all 8. And you get faster at it the more in tune you are with yourself. And, I know that part of today's topic is just with the sexual connection. And even with that, it's like if I can, in a more concise way, communicate what's happening for me in the 8 emotions, it gets me to him much quicker, even in thinking through, like with my sexual connection. So what is happening there? What is my joy? What is my loneliness? What is my hurt in that? What is my sad? And it's like then he tunes in and I tune into him, even in the conversation around sex. And it's such a builder of a bridge where often, you feel like with your partner, you're both on 2 separate parts of the river, and there's this rushing water between you, and you're like, how am I ever going to make it over to that other side? And you go, I got to build a bridge because we've just lost each other and don't know how to get back to that place. If you've ever been there, which in most relationships you have at some point, you were connecting sexually. So like, what tore that bridge down and how to rebuild that? And these are the tools where you find yourself, and then you're able to share that in a safe relationship so that you can rebuild a possible bridge that is, for whatever reason has, been taken down.
I love that metaphor, and I think that's a perfect way to segue into that topic of like how deep emotional connection can build a stronger sexual connection. Of like what tore the bridge down. Like, are there specific signs that, especially maybe in a longer term relationship, again, we have all these external factors, maybe there's kids involved, etc. Like, are there micro signs that a couple should look for to identify, like, oh, we're not connecting sexually, but maybe it's these little signs where I'm just gonna take a guess, but one person tried to request a bid for connection, but the other person shut it down unintentionally, etc. So number one question is, are there any like micro signs that couples should look for that could lead to the signs that that bridge broke down? And then how does a couple start to rebuild that bridge towards a stronger sexual connection?
Yeah. Well,
I think the breaking down of the bridge, we could probably spend hours and hours talking about scenarios of what could happen in relationships. So I think it's such an individualized, sometimes it is so small that one day you look at each other and you go, what happened? What happened? We're not fun anymore. We're not adventuresome anymore. We're just doing quickies. We barely connect. When was the last time we even had sex? Like, you do wake up one day and go, what happened? Sometimes you can, maybe over dinner, sit and go, I think it's when we took the new job, or when we moved to the new city, or when we had the baby, or when we had the second baby, or, it's like you can sometimes pin stuff started changing. Life got ahead of us, stress got ahead of us. Work got ahead of us. Money issues got ahead. Like, you can kind of see what starts to break down the bridge. And sometimes people, it could be health. You go through a health crisis and then you just get out of the routine, and then it almost feels awkward to find each other again. And that's where having these conversations is such a huge, huge place to start with rebuilding that bridge or stabilizing the bridge. Maybe the bridge isn't completely torn down, but you're just realizing, man, I feel like our bridge is really shaky and it could break. And so we want to stabilize our bridge, or we want to be more adventuresome in our sexual relationship. So how do we stabilize the bridge? How do we strengthen the bridge? Or, and so you kind of can start with just having some great conversation. But if that's the beauty of being able to process the emotions, because oftentimes with couples, there's a lot of fear about having the conversation. A lot of fear of the other person's response, fear of being judged, fear of, the other partner reacting defensively. Like, I'm doing the best I can, or what do you want? Or we just had sex the other day, like responding and not an open door. And so to be able to learn some of these really basic tools of how to even speak the language, like to say, I know these are conversations Glenn and I will have. I'll say, babe, I'm having fear talking to you about this. Not because he's not safe. It's just fear for me. And then to be able to get the attention. Often if I start a sentence by saying, I feel fear telling you this, he stops everything. Like, he puts down whatever he's doing and he tunes into me. And then like the open invitation, he'll say, what's happening with the fear, babe? And then when I'm able to say, well, I'm feeling some sexual loneliness, it's like he tunes in. He's like, ooh, what's happening with loneliness? And it's that conversation that leads to my need, right? So he's not going to be aware of my need if I don't tell him my need. Like, my need for a slower pace, my need for watching different types of shows instead of the serial killer shows. I would love some romantic, rom-com shows. Like those, it may be a very small need, but if I don't express it, if I don't ever tell him, he on his own it's not fair to him to say, well, he'll figure it out someday. If I don't say it, there's no reason for him to ever figure that out.
Well, and the problem is I'll fill in the blanks. If she doesn't fill in the blank for me, I'll fill it in with like 11 different things, most or all of which are inaccurate or incorrect. So it doesn't really help us. It actually makes it worse. Whereas if she'll just say to me exactly what's happening. But again, that's incredibly vulnerable to do, to be that authentic. That's the reason we do the core emotion wheel endlessly, to get good at doing this, because when she can convey to me with one of the 8 core emotions or several of the core emotions what's happening, then I know her experience, and then I can be present with her. A side note about that, what's fascinating, the research shows that when she says one of the 8 core emotions, it tickles that corresponding region of my brain. It becomes a shared human experience, and we connect through that. We bond through that. We have what we call mirror neurons. There's other things about it that occur as well in interactions. But the mirror neurons themselves, whenever I hear her fear or her hurt or her loneliness or her guilt or her shame or whatever's happening, I connect with that. That's the human condition. But it's because she's able to verbalize that concisely. And I'm a very good ooer as well, so I'm able to be present with her as she processes that emotion, and we bond through that. And then we're able to get to the need. Core emotions are there to help us see what the need is. And we can't always meet the need, but as much as possible to be able to get that need met.
Yes, exactly. I think that hitting it on the emotions, speaking about our emotions, allows us to articulate our needs, our specific needs, and then that's that bridge. I think is something that really critical to kind of tap into there, as opposed to just saying that, like, I just feel this way, which is all valid. All our emotional experience is valid. But if we trying to get to the root of it, then it's like, I have this need and that, and speaking of that need in terms of sexual intimacy, what if two people are speaking two different languages? Like, what if the sexual intimacy that one partner desires, and I'll speak generally. Let's say, like, if the woman wants more of the emotional intimacy first, or that's something that she feels like is lacking, that she would need, but the man in a heterosexual relationship may feel that his need and the intimacy is more physical. So how can a couple honor these different intimacy language and needs to, again, to foster it and to not neglect one, but to honor it and then to build on that?
Yeah. Well, that's what we call the dance. We're dancing through that. I mean, and every human's unique, therefore every guy's unique, every girl's unique. Guys typically are more sexually driven. They're activated sexually more frequently and more easily, more readily than females. Not always. There are plenty of exceptions, but typically that's the case. So for him, if it's just a physiological push that he just wants to do sexual stuff. But I will say this, after a whole bunch of years of doing this, I've never met the man who would not like to be emotionally connected. Again, he can do sexual activity easier than she can, typically, without emotional connection. But he would prefer emotional safety. He would prefer emotional connection if he even thinks that's a possibility. And again, for many couples, we were one of those. We didn't even think that was possible. We'd given up years ago before we discovered the Connection Codes tools. So I don't know any human that wouldn't prefer emotional connection to go along with sexual connection. Most people have just given up. They don't even think that is possible. So to be able to start there is actually, I believe, the human condition. Every human would prefer that.
You know, it goes back to safety of conversation. Like, that's the, when you're going back to the analogy of the bridge, is realizing we've got to first feel safe to have these conversations without judgment, because so often the conversation of sex way too often is an argument. It's under the category of argument. What we argue about is sex. And so that's not a safe topic. And, to create safety in it is to go without judgment. Like, too often there's fingers being pointed, like, you're not interested enough, you don't pursue me enough, you don't. And so it shuts the other person down. And that's part of, too, what we learned is, for either one of us to be able to just express like sexual loneliness is not an accusation of the other. It's just what we're experiencing. And it's like to be able to have that conversation and go to, what do you need? And, there's a lot of things where you go, I just love to have more time where we carve out, an evening where we have several hours of just connecting sexually, like bantering, like just to have the safety. But you've got to be able to have those conversations without them being arguments where you're yelling at each other. about your sexual desire. Like that is not a conversation that builds trust or builds safety. And so it's like, wow, we can't even seem to have a conversation about this without it being an argument.
That's so interesting. I never heard about the sexual conversation being more as a argument, or like it's a common like lead as it's an argument. So that was really interesting. And that makes sense again that you brought up safety, because like when you have that emotional connection first, you have established that emotional safety to not only express your deepest desires, but things like even sexual fantasies or the desire for this type of intimacy that wouldn't be met with, hesitation and judgment there. But like that makes so much sense why you brought up that safety again, because and that really is like that, I guess I think another bridge or that step to in order to tap into the deeper sexual connection. What do you mean, Phyllis, as sexual loneliness? Is that the disconnect?
Well, I don't know that I would say that it's necessarily a disconnect. It's an actual loneliness. So, loneliness fires in the pain region of the brain. So in the pain region of the brain, there's loneliness, sad, and hurt. And, loneliness is kind of that feeling of unsupported. And, sexually, there's times when it's just I'm not feeling sexually supported by my partner. Like we're not on the same page. We're not desiring it at the same time. We're really missing each other in that. There can be just sexual sadness where you're like, man, I feel like we're not taking the time to have fun and slow down with each other. Like I just feel sad about that. Or sometimes there's actual sexual hurt where you're just like, man, I just feel like it just feels painful. Our sexual relationship has just gotten to a place where it just is painful. There's not a whole lot of sexual joy in this part anymore. Like,
especially if there's rejection.
Yeah, well that can be, if there's rejection, that's definitely sexual hurt. But it's kind of that idea of just desiring more. I think sometimes, we misunderstand even the word loneliness. We think that it's for lack of like people in our lives, right? And it's like, no. It can be loneliness. When it fires, we can feel very unsupported. We can be surrounded by people and still experience loneliness. And so in just sexually, there's times when it's just like, I don't feel your presence. Like even if you're sexually active and yet your partner doesn't really seem to be there. Emotionally, they're not there. They're detached. They're not, you just feel it. Like you feel their presence is missing. Their body is there, but they're nothing else. You've just got this body. And it's like, it may even be fun. You may be sexually active, but when it's over, you're like, wow, I just feel like lonely because I'm not sure you were really there. And those conversations are just extremely powerful because, what those lead to often is finding out what's happening with your partner. And sometimes there's a lot of shame around sex for people, depending on their past or depending on what they were brought up in. And so they kind of almost disassociate during their sexual interactions. And to be able to talk about that is so freeing, and it brings you emotionally so much closer when you understand what's going on with your partner.
Yeah, and we encourage people to do, we've talked about the core emotion wheel. It's called an issue-specific core emotion wheel where we're focusing on a specific issue. And we encourage couples to do an issue-specific core emotion wheel about their sexual relationship. And usually that's so incredibly revealing that, okay, we may be involved sexually, but Phyllis actually is feeling loneliness because she doesn't feel seen and heard and valued. I mean, she's there geographically. She's involved in the sexual interaction, but she doesn't feel seen. Well, that's not good. And the only way that, and again, this happened for us, who knows, thousands of times. I feel shame in saying, so many times we missed on this. And I think, just based on a bit of experience, that the majority of sexual activity for women, they disassociate. They're there geographically, they're not there relationally. They're just there, because he's horny and he wants to get his rocks off. And so then she just basically becomes a sperm receptacle. She's just available to him, but they're not actually connected relationally. They're just doing things, sexual activity, but it's not a relational thing.
I'm so glad
before.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Chris, before we run out of time, I would love for us to do a wheel for your listeners.
Yes.
So just make sure we leave enough time for that to happen. That would be great.
Yes. Oh, let's do it now, because I see that we're already at 1 hour and wanted to ask one last question. So yes, if you would like to take the wheel. No pun intended.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
So we will demonstrate, we'll do an issue specific wheel around sexuality, since that's, the topic today.
Cool.
So you want to go first?
Yeah. Let's see. For me, there is a lot of shame that we missed.
Wow.
It's stunning. So just unbearable to think how many times, 'cause this wasn't one bad weekend. This was decades. And I feel so much shame that I was so unaware, just oblivious.
Wow.
Lots of guilt in that. Like, good grief, this is my best friend. This is the person that means more to me than anybody else on the planet. And I just missed with you so many times. And all of the wounding that came from that. Of course, there was so much hurt for both of us, but for me as well, and I get what was happening for you, but, I felt rejected so many times.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me now, I have no idea, we didn't write it on the calendar, but how many years it's been since I've felt rejected at all. It's just amazing to me. Lots of sadness, certainly. We're fairly old. We've been at this a while. That's part of our dream, part of our joy, is that young people get this heck of a lot earlier than we did. I want pre-marriage, I want dating couples, I want engaged couples to get this at an early age, so they don't ever have to experience all the stuff that we did. Lots of anger in that. I'm really driven to make this universal. Because people deserve safety and connection and goodness in any relationship, but especially if they're in a partnered pair, to be able to live that way. I think about what we get to live now, and we're certainly not perfect at it. We haven't arrived, but we can go for so many days, weeks without missing each other at all, and that blows my mind that's a thing, because 30 years ago I had given up on the possibility. Let's see, always fear. Just about misconveying to people in general, but also for us, some fear just in conveying to you my authentic, vulnerable self, and that you will like me. And again, you've never conveyed anything otherwise in a very long time, but that fear, that vulnerability. Did I mention lonely? I guess there's loneliness in that at times. Just like, oh my gosh, is she going to support me? Is she going to be there for me? Is she going to like me? As the authentic, vulnerable me. And then tons of joy. Oh my gosh, just the heights. And I'd given up on that. It's so sad that, because I knew we were doomed. And every voice around me said, yeah, that's just what marriage is. It just dissipates into this level of blahness. And to realize that's not true. And we've been together 47 years, married 43, and I'm like, whoa, we're starting to get good at this. And I get flooded with joy. Certainly when we're involved sexually, just that experience itself, but also the whole idea of it just blows my mind. It's so fun.
Thanks. So for me, I think my sexual joy is that I'm your sexual friend, and you often tell me that. I love that. I'm so thankful for that. I think I have a lot of sexual joy in figuring out myself, but without any pressure or timeline. A lot of anger for the many, many ways we have missed sexually over the years, especially in the early days and years, created a lot of trauma. that my body has remembered.
Mm.
And that's probably a lot of hurt too. Just the trying to find each other sexually. There was just in trying to find each other, there was a lot of hurt created, a lot of trauma created. A lot of sad in that for me too. Just that's part of our story. I hate that. Lonely, I would say it does feel at times lonely, the trying to figure out myself at this point, like in my 60s, and just that learning of myself in a really honest and true way sexually. I do feel I feel guilt about even some of the conversations we've had this year back in January that just brought you a lot of pain, and feel guilt in that, definitely joy in where it led as far as a lot of things that needed to be said, but and shame, I think for me, shame that it's so man, so dang complicated at times, like it's like, really, does it have to be this complicated, like to stay really connected sexually, like it's like something that just shame in that complication, I guess. Fear, sometimes I think I feel fear that like so much damage was done early in our relationship that it is a cloud. Like my fear is that it's a cloud that is just always going to be there, and that there's like that's just something you just carry with you, kind of. So just some fear of what that means or what that looks like, and just being able to figure it out. I think there's just kind of fear in that. What does that even mean? So, is that all of them?
I think so.
Okay.
I love it.
That's us.
Cool.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for walking us through that, and also sharing also like an intimate like moment. So one thing else I observed I would love to ask as a final like question around that. I observed there was physical touch, like the hand on each other during that moment of sharing. What is that doing? Is that intentional? Because you share the audible oohing and awing serves a purpose. But was the physical touch also doing something to each other? in
Yeah,
that
I
moment?
mean, scientifically, it's organic. We are touching people at birth. That's we actually have research on that. A lot of research that babies will die from a lack of physical touch, not a lack of nutrition. Not because they froze to death, it's because they literally weren't touched, which is horrific to think that that's a possible scenario. So part of that's organic. The more connected we feel relationally, the more we touch each other, and the more we touch each other, the more connected we feel relationally. So it's a reciprocal thing it builds. But we also do it on purpose because we know the power of that. Again, the research is emphatic on that. Compassionate touch activates oxytocin in the other person's brain. Oxytocin is a pain and a fear stabilizer. So we call it a cheat code. You get to cheat just a little bit. If I touch her, it actually changes her biochemically, as long as she's not afraid of me, which again, that's that whole safety issue. But when she feels safe with me, if I touch her, I'm using a cheat code to drug her. Oxytocin is a drug in the brain. And so, I want her flooded with oxytocin. And there's other drugs as well. Serotonin gets involved in there. A couple other neurotransmitters. It's intentional, but it's also organic. It just kind of happens spontaneously.
It's beautiful. I love that the compassionate touch. It makes a lot of sense. Really, like being in both of your presence, even digitally, it really is inspiring. And if people don't know, I know you speak very openly about even early stages of your marriage. It wasn't as it wasn't at the strong connected place where you guys are now. So, and the work that you do, sharing us raw examples of how to use the core emotion wheel, even to talk about something so intimate and maybe even scary for some people, even with their partner, really is an inspiration. So thank you for being that for so many people, so many couples. And I know you spoke about also in our past conversation that these tools that you have developed, it serves people in for relational skills in all relationships, right? Like it's not just in a romantic relationship.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of came in time. I mean, at first it was all developed because of his private practice and working with mostly married people. And then it just started to expand beyond that and realized, wow, first we've got to be able to do this for ourselves. Like I've got to find myself emotionally so that I can show up and communicate emotionally with him. And, it's just been so powerful to see that this work has expanded to far beyond marriages. And, we work with a lot of corporations, we work with individuals, we work with family units, so it's like it works incredibly with kids. And it's just the human condition. So, of course, it only makes sense that it works at all ages and stages of life. We just didn't think about it when we first started this work because we were specifically honing in on marriage. But yeah, it's far beyond marriage.
Yeah, and that's the power of it. So can I ask you this last question? It's a tradition. I asked you guys last time. Perhaps something else will come up. But if you can pass on one piece of wisdom, advice to your younger self today, what would you like to pass on to younger Phyllis and younger Glenn?
So for me, it would be to slow down and get to know who I am and be confident in who I am.
Beautiful.
Wow. Yeah, for me, I mean, it's Connection Codes 101. I was born authentic. I was born vulnerable. I was always supposed to stay that way. A lot of ingredients, I didn't vote on it. A lot of ingredients led to me not being authentic, not being vulnerable. And that would be my, counsel to a younger Glenn is just go ahead and be authentic, be vulnerable, be your real at the core self. If somebody doesn't like you, they can move away from you. They don't have to, be involved with you. And what's amazing to me is that Phyllis would have embraced me in my authenticity. We met at 15 and 16. If I had done that whenever I was 16 years old, but I didn't know that. And it took me a quarter of a century to find out that actually she's my friend. She likes me. And that would have been nice to know that whenever I was 16 or 14 or 10, because I'd completely been miseducated in that.
Such an inspiration. Thank you. Can you also remind us, our audience, where they can connect with you, learn more about your incredible tools, research, and work that you do to help them foster deeper relationships in their lives?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So I know we'll have some links in the show notes, but also if you're listening and not looking at your device, connectioncodes.co is our website. You can really find everything there. We have a podcast of our own. We have a book that we've written. It's on Amazon. We have master classes that teach all of this in detail. And, we even certify coaches. So if you are a coach or interested in just helping people, we have incredible cohorts that go through as groups, and we certify them. And it's a wonderful work that we've started. We have this in different languages. So there's a lot out there. We love for people to connect, but we always give away the core emotion wheel. And that's a great place to start, which if you get on our website, you'll just fill out your name and email, and then you'll get the core emotion wheel for free, and you'll get how to use it and videos showing you how to use it. So connectioncodes.co is how you find us.
Great. I'll be sure to link to all of that, of your incredible body of work, and really just helping people with their relational skills. I just feel like that is just a core fundamental human skill that I feel like it's eroding more and more. So what you are doing and what you have been doing is such an imperative inspirational work. So thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for your time with me again. It really is always a pleasure. I feel like I always learn so much and inspired to, foster deeper relationships in my life. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank
It's
you.
such an honor to be with you.
Mhm.